Welcome back, my friend. Tonight, London enters a time of order, tragedy, and uncertainty. We follow Henry I, the loss of the White Ship, and the long civil war known as the Anarchy. Settle into comfort, breathe slowly, and let England's restless history carry you gently towards sleep. Subscribe to Deep Sleep Storytelling for more peaceful journeys through history, science, and the mysteries of the sea.
Henry I and the Rise of Order. When William II fell in that mysterious forest clearing, England didn't even have time to gasp properly before Henry, the youngest son of William the Conqueror, made his move. Henry raced to Winchester, secured the royal treasury, gathered the nobles, and practically crowned himself Henry I. Before the echo of Rufus's last arrow had faded between the trees, if William II had been a bonfire, chaotic, dramatic, crackling in every direction, Henry I was a polished iron stove, controlled, contained, steady, and very, very hot when needed. He was clever, educated, patient, sharp-minded, and determined to clean up the political, financial, and spiritual mess left by his fiery brother. Some said Henry had the brains of the family. Others said he had the caution the others lacked. Everyone agreed he had the ambition. A new style of king. Henry I ruled not with chaos, but with calculation. He issued the Charter of Liberties, a promise to restore good governance and limit the more enthusiastic excesses of the monarchy. It was a sort of medieval. Let's start fresh, shall we? A royal reset button, an olive branch to nobles, clergy, merchants, and anyone who still felt shaken by the theatrical nature of Rufus's reign. The charter promised more predictable taxes, fairer courts, less royal interference in church vacancies, respect for traditional laws, and fewer surprise demands for money. Did Henry keep all those promises? Well, medieval kings rarely kept all their promises, but he kept enough to calm the kingdom. Rebellions quieted. Nobles relaxed slightly. Bishops breathed again. Merchants stopped pacing nervously. The kingdom felt steady, and London thrived in stability, the way flowers thrive in sunlight. London under Henry I, a city growing in confidence. With rebellion suppressed and political tension soothed, London entered a new phase, not explosive growth, but steady, meaningful development. Markets expanded. The city's markets grew larger, their stalls pushed together like gossiping neighbors. Imported goods arrived in greater variety. Normandy wool, Flemish cloth, Scandinavian timber, French wine, Baltic fur, spices that made cooks squint suspiciously. Londoners loved markets, loud ones, crowded ones, chaotic ones, and Henry I's stable policies encouraged trade to flourish. Trade routes widened, Ships now came from farther away. Roads saw more traffic. Merchants felt bold enough to explore new routes, sometimes returning richer, sometimes returning poorer, sometimes not returning at all. But London admired their courage. Law became predictable. Henry introduced reforms that made justice less random. Under Rufus, the law sometimes felt like a game of guess what mood the king is in today. Under Henry, it became something you could rely on. Courts followed clearer rules. Magistrates were better trained. Royal justice became standardized. Disputes were settled with fewer throne chairs. People who lived in London valued order, though they still enjoyed shouting loudly at markets, which was their right. The Tower's role grew. The Tower of London remained the city's anchor. Under Henry, it stored royal records, protected the treasury, housed political prisoners, served as a royal residence during visits, and became a symbol of legal authority rather than pure intimidation. The Tower watched London with steady eyes, its pale walls reflecting the sun on good days and brooding quietly on bad ones. Roads improved. Henry understood the importance of infrastructure. Better roads meant faster messengers, safer trade, more predictable travel, fewer carts stuck in catastrophic mud, and significantly fewer horses questioning their owners' decisions. London benefited from this greatly. Supplies arrived more quickly, goods traveled more safely, and communication with distant towns no longer required heroic levels of patience. Guilds began forming routes. Under Henry, guilds slowly sprouted across the city. These were early versions of professional associations. Bakers, weavers, carpenters, tanners, metalworkers, masons, merchants, and the ever-passionate fishmongers. They set standards, trained apprentices, regulated prices, and occasionally argued loudly about who deserved the best stall in the market square. Guilds would one day shape London's very identity, but here in the early 12th century, they were just beginning to take form. A city growing into itself, day by day, year by year, London transformed. Houses were enlarged. Shops grew sturdier. Churches rose in stone. Monasteries expanded libraries. Wharves along the Thames buzzed with non-stop activity. The city wasn't yet the mighty heart of a global empire, but the pulse was there, steady, strong, growing. People felt it in their bones. London was becoming something special. Merchants bragged. Sailors sang. Clergy preached. Nobles invested. Craftsmen honed their skills. Children ran through the streets with the joy of belonging to a city full of promise. And Henry himself visited regularly, inspecting roads, strengthening defenses, and occasionally surprising officials with sharp questions that revealed how closely he monitored every detail of governance. Henry's personal strengths and personal sorrows. Henry I was not warm, nor charming, nor whimsical, but he was effective. He was structured. He understood government better than his brothers. He married well, formed alliances, and maintained stability for decades. Yet for all his success, his personal life held deep tragedy. He had one legitimate son, William Ætheling. The boy was cherished, educated, prepared for kingship, beloved by nobles, respected across Europe. He represented the continuity of the Norman line, the hope of England's future, and the assurance that the kingdom would remain stable after Henry's reign. London placed great trust in the prince. Merchants spoke of him with admiration. Courtiers praised his intelligence. Foreign ambassadors respected him. The city looked ahead with optimism. And then came disaster. Not in London, but far away, out on the dark waters of the English Channel. The White Ship, a night that changed everything. In November 1120, Prince William Ætheling prepared to sail back to England from Normandy. He boarded the White Ship, a vessel known for its speed, its prestige, and the celebratory atmosphere on board. The crew was skilled. The passengers were elite. Wine flowed freely. Too freely. Witnesses later claimed the sailors drank with the nobles. Laughter echoed across the harbor. Someone boasted about how fast the ship would cross the channel. The prince himself encouraged the revelry, celebrating life, future kingship, and youth. The ship left port late, too late, in the wrong conditions, with the wrong crew, in the wrong state of mind. Shortly after leaving Barfleur, the White Ship struck a submerged rock. It began to sink. Passengers panicked. Screams filled the night. Cold water swallowed the decks. Chaos overwhelmed the crew. Prince William made it into a small boat, a moment of salvation. But then he heard the cries of his half-sister behind him. He ordered the boat, turned around. The boat capsized under the weight of frantic survivors. William Ætheling drowned in the freezing water. There were almost no survivors. The heir to the throne was gone. The consequences unfold. When word reached Henry I, he collapsed in grief. When word reached London, the city shuddered. Merchants paused their work. Clergy prayed. Nobles whispered in fear. The future of England, so secure, so promising, had vanished into the sea. Henry's reign continued for years, but the stability he built had been pierced. No heir, no clear successor, only uncertainty. London, once rising with confidence, now braced for a storm. A storm that would bring civil war, rival claims, and a dark period known as the Anarchy. But that is a chapter yet to come. For now, London continues to grow, steady but shaken. A city that has glimpsed how fragile destiny can be. The White Ship Disaster. The year was 1120, and the English Channel was calm that night. A soft, dark stretch of water, glimmering faintly under the moon, quiet, peaceful, entirely unaware that it was about to become the setting of one of medieval Europe's most devastating tragedies. Prince William Ætheling, only legitimate son of Henry I, was 19 years old, energetic, intelligent, ambitious, and very aware of his importance. He was the future of England. Not metaphorically, literally. He was the glue meant to hold together a kingdom, shaped by 2 generations of Norman rule. Nobles adored him. Courtiers praised his wit. Merchants spoke of him with respect. Even the clergy, who rarely praised anyone without adding a lecture, quietly approved of him. In short, England had a plan, and that plan was named William Ætheling, which is why what happened next would shake the entire kingdom, including London, to its very bones. The ship that should have been a celebration. Prince William was returning from Normandy to England. He could have taken his father's vessel, but instead chose the White Ship, a famously sleek, fast, beautifully crafted ship captained by Thomas Fitzstephen, the son of the man who had carried William the Conqueror to England decades earlier. It felt symbolic, like closing a circle. The ship attracted excitement. Young nobles boarded. The prince's companions joined him. Wine flowed freely. Too freely. Contemporary chroniclers describe the atmosphere as festive, almost reckless. Think of it as the medieval version of a bunch of elite 20-year-olds threw a party on a brand new yacht, and nothing could possibly go wrong. Except, of course, everything could, and everything did. A dangerous delay. The White Ship left the harbor at Barfleur late. Very late. So late that Henry I's own ship had already departed. By the time William's ship set sail, the harbor taverns had shut their doors and the moon was high. The prince and his entourage were in excellent spirits. Fitzstephen bragged about outrunning every other ship on the channel. Passengers cheered. Someone toasted loudly to England. Someone else toasted to Normandy. Someone else tripped over the anchor rope. The crew, unfortunately, had indulged in the same celebratory energy. They were talented sailors. But talent does not mix well with too much alcohol. In hindsight, the combination of a dark night, a late departure, an ambitious captain, a powerful current, and a boatload of cheering aristocrats was breathtakingly unwise. Disaster in the dark. Not long after departing, the white ship struck a submerged rock lurking just below the surface. A sharp, terrible sound split the night. Wood cracked. Water rushed in. Lanterns swung wildly. Passengers stumbled. Screams tore across the ship. Panic spread faster than the rising water. People pushed, grabbed, cried, prayed, cursed. Armor made swimming impossible. Heavy cloaks dragged nobles under. The cold water numbed limbs instantly. Prince William was initially guided into a small lifeboat, a frantic, desperate attempt to save him. The oarsmen rowed hard, pulling him away from the sinking main vessel. He might have survived. He would have survived. But then he heard the screams of his half-sister, Matilda Fitzroy, calling from the collapsing deck. He ordered the boat turned around. It was a noble impulse, a heroic one, a family instinct. But dozens of desperate passengers threw themselves toward the returning boat. The weight was too much. The small vessel capsized. The prince was thrown into the icy water. And there, in the dark cold of the channel, William Ætheling drowned. Almost everyone aboard the white ship was lost. Chronicler Orderic Vitalis wrote that the water was filled with the cries of the dying. Echoing through the night, only one man survived, a butcher from Rouen, who stayed afloat by clinging to the ship's mast. He brought the news ashore, and that single survivor changed the course of English history. England wakes to grief. When news reached Henry I, it was said he collapsed where he stood. His grief was so profound that he never smiled again for the rest of his life. But London reacted in the only way a bustling medieval capital could, with a paralyzing shock that rippled through every street, market, tavern, and church. Merchants whispered, "What will happen now?" Clergy prayed, loudly and often. Nobles panicked internally and externally. People in alehouses shaken by the tragedy asked, "Does the king have another heir? Someone else? Anyone?" The answer was complicated. Henry had many illegitimate children, but only one legitimate son, the boy who had just drowned. England had no clear successor. And in medieval politics, a kingdom without an heir is a match dropped in dry grass. Where there is no heir, history does what history does. It starts a fight. With Prince William dead, the line of succession was suddenly unclear, unstable, dangerous. England, and London especially, understood the risk. When a throne is uncertain, Nobles sharpen swords. When a dynasty wavers, rivals appear. When a king cannot guarantee his successor, factions multiply. And when a kingdom senses weakness, ambition spreads like wildfire. London had already lived through decades of Norman transformation. It had been reorganized, rebuilt, taxed, surveilled, fortified. It had learned to adjust under William the Conqueror. It had survived the fiery impulsiveness of William II. It had thrived under Henry I's structured governance. But this, the sudden loss of the heir, was something new. It was a crack in the foundation, and everyone knew that cracks grow. The weight of uncertainty. Henry, I tried to fix the situation. He gathered nobles. He demanded oaths. He pointed to his daughter, Empress Matilda, as his heir. Nobles swore loyalty because refusing to swear loyalty to a king in his presence was a terrible idea. London accepted the announcement with polite enthusiasm and private doubt. Not because Matilda lacked ability. She was brilliant, educated in imperial politics, strong-willed, and experienced. But because medieval England did not easily accept the idea of a woman ruling. And everyone knew it. The White Ship disaster wasn't just a tragedy. It rearranged the political map. Without a male heir, the throne floated in dangerous waters. London braced itself. A city holding its breath. Imagine London at this moment. Merchants watching the situation with hopeful caution. Bishops praying the nobles would behave. Unlikely. Guilds strengthening ties in case of future instability. Guards tightening patrols. The tower's administrators sharpening quills, expecting long nights of paperwork. Taverns buzzing with rumors. Children overhearing conversations they didn't understand. Nobles riding nervously through the streets. And Henry I aging rapidly under the pressure of holding the kingdom together with his bare hands. London could feel the storm coming. The city had survived wars, rebellions, fires, and Norman reshaping, but a succession crisis was always the most dangerous threat of all. A kingdom can endure famine. It can endure invasion. It can endure political chaos. But a fight for the throne, that tears nations apart. And the White Ship had pulled the first thread. The quiet before a very loud storm. Henry I continued ruling for 15 more years after the disaster. He governed with determination, discipline, and visible sorrow. He pushed deeper reforms. He strengthened administration. He tried desperately to secure the line of succession. But the wound left by the White Ship never healed. When Henry died in 1135, the crown did not pass smoothly to Matilda. A rival seized it, and England was thrown into a civil war so chaotic so prolonged, so exhausting, that chroniclers simply called it the Anarchy. But that is for the next chapter. For now, remember this. A single shipwreck far from London's shores changed the destiny of England, because when Prince William Ætheling sank beneath the Channel's dark waves, the future of the Norman dynasty sank with him, and London, unprepared and unwilling, was pushed into the center of a storm. The Anarchy, 1135 to 1154. There is an old saying, well, actually, I just made it up, but it should be an old saying. When a kingdom has 2 people claiming the throne, it has 0 people controlling it. And that is exactly what happened to England in 1135, the year Henry I died. His body was barely cold when the political storm began. 2 claimants. Step forward. Henry I wanted his daughter, Empress Matilda, to succeed him. He made the nobles swear loyalty to her. Not once, not twice, but multiple times to make sure they understood that, yes, I mean it. I am serious. This is not optional. But medieval nobles had a fascinating trait. They considered oaths deeply sacred, unless keeping them became inconvenient. And the moment Henry died, inconvenience arrived at full speed. Another claimant appeared, Stephen of Blois, Henry's nephew, charismatic, well-connected, popular among many nobles, and importantly, a man. When news of Henry's death reached him, Stephen did not waste time reflecting, praying, or writing elegant condolences. No. Stephen sprinted, literally sprinted, to seize the royal treasury, gather support, and get himself crowned. London watched this unfold with wide eyes and tense shoulders. Matilda was the rightful heir. Stephen was the convenient one. And London chose convenience. Why London chose Stephen? Londoners were practical people. Even in the 12th century, they valued stability, trade, predictable governance, the ability to buy bread without someone burning down the market, and leaders who didn't plunge the city into chaos. A female ruler was rare, unheard of, and alarming to many nobles. Matilda was strong-willed, a virtue for leadership, but a red flag to men who preferred obedience from their monarchs. Stephen, on the other hand, was affable, generous, and eager to win support. To London, he looked like the safer option. So when Stephen arrived, the city opened its gates, bells rang, and a coronation was arranged faster than any medieval event had a right to be arranged. Matilda, across the Channel, disagreed profoundly. The Anarchy begins, and so began one of the most chaotic chapters in English history. A civil war so dramatic, so exhausting, so chronically inconvenient that chroniclers gave it a simple, haunting name: the Anarchy. 1135 to 1154. 19 years. 19 years of shifting loyalties, broken promises, ambitious nobles, desperate peasants, sieges, betrayals, fires, famines, and political drama worthy of a modern streaming platform miniseries. England didn't just experience a civil war. England lived in one. London in the middle of the storm. Though battles raged across the countryside, London wasn't always a battlefield, but it was a political stage, a crowded, smoky, noisy stage where royal messengers raced in and out. Nobles plotted in dimly lit halls. Bishops argued over legitimacy. Markets swelled with tension. And citizens wondered daily who exactly was king that morning. Stephen held London for most of the conflict, but his grip weakened and strengthened, like the tides of the Thames. Matilda made attempts to capture the city, most famously in 1141, when she entered London in triumph, only for the Londoners to chase her out days later with impressive speed and considerable shouting. London was loyal to stability, not personalities. And if a ruler threatened bread prices, that loyalty evaporated instantly. The rhythm of survival. Yet even in crisis, even with uncertainty pressing down like fog, London kept working. Because London always keeps working. Bakers baked. They burned some loaves, sold others, and maintained their centuries-long tradition of producing bread that was either slightly too hard or slightly too soft. Merchants traded. Coins exchanged hands. Foreign ships docked. Markets buzzed with voices speaking English, Norman French, Flemish, and whatever language eel sellers used when particularly enthusiastic. Ports received cargo, wine from France, timber from Scandinavia, salt from across Europe, silk from distant lands, and barrels, always barrels, of preserved eels. Craftsmen continued their work. Carpenters hammered, masons carved, tanners scraped hides, blacksmiths forged tools and weapons in equal measure. Eel sellers sold eels, because nothing, not even a 19-year civil war, could stop London's eel obsession. Therapists did not exist in the 12th century, but if they had, the eel sellers of London would have made excellent case studies. The human cost. But beneath the hum of survival, fear lingered. Londoners heard stories from the countryside. Villages burned, fields trampled, families fleeing, robber barons taking over castles, famine in winter, raids in summer, ransom, devastation, disappearances. It was said that in some regions, every man built a castle, not to show off, but to defend themselves from their neighbors. London, with its walls, guards, and political importance, remained safer than most. But the city felt the weight of war every time. Prices rose every time refugees arrived. Every time the tower strengthened its defenses. Matilda and Stephen, a war of shadows. The conflict between Stephen and Matilda was not constant battle. It was a political chess match played across 2 decades. London supported Stephen. Many nobles supported Matilda. Some nobles supported both, depending on the day. Some supported neither, preferring self-rule. And some changed sides so often that chroniclers simply gave up writing their names. Matilda was brilliant, fierce, and competent, but her assertive style clashed with the expectations of a male-dominated nobility. Stephen was generous and charming, but often indecisive, allowing chaos to spread under his reign. Both had strengths. Both had flaws. Neither could secure total victory. And as long as the conflict dragged on, London and all of England held its breath. A city that refuses to fall. Yet against all odds, London endured. The reason was simple. London was no longer a fragile medieval town. It had become something sturdier, wealthier, more resilient. It had the tower's protection, strong markets, deep trade connections, busy ports, established guilds, growing wealth, and a population accustomed to hardship. The city adapted. It survived raids, rumors, shortages, political instability, and soaring eel prices, truly the worst of all. And London's leaders, bishops, sheriffs, merchants, guild masters, kept the city functioning even when England's monarchy was, shall we say, taking a prolonged vacation from stability. The compromise that saved England. After nearly 2 decades of conflict, both sides were exhausted. Stephen was aging. Matilda was no longer focused on claiming the throne for herself, but for her son, Henry Plantagenet. The nobles, tired of burning fields and rising taxes, urged peace. In 1153, an agreement was reached. Stephen would remain king for the rest of his life. But after him, Matilda's son Henry would inherit the throne. It was a brilliant compromise, neither surrender nor victory, but a promise of unity. Stephen died the next year. Henry Plantagenet ascended the throne peacefully as Henry II. And just like that, after nearly 20 years of unrest, England exhaled. London exhaled. Peace returned. Slowly, gently, like a wave washing away footprints on wet sand. The city, scarred but standing, prepared for a new chapter, the beginning of the Plantagenet world. A world where London would rise higher, grow richer, and step boldly into the next centuries of its destiny. A city ready for the future. When Matilda's son became Henry II in 1154, London exhaled. A long, weary, relieved exhale. The kind you release after holding your breath for 20 years, while two rival monarchs toss your kingdom around like children fighting over a toy. The anarchy was over. The dust was settling. The tension was fading. And London, patient, stubborn, hard-working London, was ready. Ready for a new king. Ready for a new chapter. Ready for a new age. Because during those turbulent decades, something extraordinary had happened. London had grown up. A city that had quietly transformed. By 1154, London was no longer the Anglo-Saxon settlement William the Conqueror had marched into almost a century earlier. It was something larger, something more complex, something shaped by fire, war, trade, stone, and ambition. Henry II inherited a city that had become the beating heart of England, a city that pulsed with energy, noise, and purpose. Its population had grown. More people meant more houses, more shops, more guilds, more carts blocking narrow streets, more children chasing geese, and more geese chasing the children back. The city sprawled outward from its Roman walls like a restless animal stretching its limbs. New suburbs formed. New parishes emerged. New communities arrived from Normandy, Flanders, Germany, and beyond. London was not just bigger, it was busier. Its markets were wealthy. You could buy anything in London now. Fine Flemish cloth, Italian spices, Norman wine, Baltic timber, delicate jewelry, fish, especially eels, always eels, tools, parchment, pottery, livestock, strange trinkets. Merchants swore were magical, but were mostly just shiny. The markets grew louder, bolder, and more essential to the kingdom's prosperity. Its walls were strong. The old Roman walls, patched, reinforced, repaired, expanded, remained a sturdy embrace around the city. Gates stood proudly. Aldgate, Ludgate, Newgate, Bishopsgate, and more. Guards patrolled. Merchants streamed through. Messengers galloped past like arrows. The walls had protected London through rebellion and famine. They would protect it through far greater dangers still to come. The tower stood as a symbol of power, No longer just a fortress, the Tower of London had become the physical embodiment of authority. It held prisoners. It stored records. It kept the treasury. It housed monarchs. It intimidated the ambitious. And it reminded the city and the kingdom that the crown was never far away. In sunlight, it glowed pale and proud. In fog, it appeared like a ghostly sentinel watching the river. The tower had witnessed the conquest, the rise of Rufus, the reforms of Henry I, the chaos of the Anarchy, and now it watched the dawn of the Plantagenet era. Norman influence had blended into English life. By 1154, Norman culture was no longer foreign. It was simply England. French blended with English into a strange but beautiful linguistic stew. Stone buildings replaced timber. Feudal law structured society. The church operated under Norman reforms. Architecture soared. Government centralized. Guilds grew stronger. Customs fused. Londoners still called themselves English, but their city now carried the imprint of Normandy in every corner, every stone, every law. The transformation was complete. A new identity takes shape. London's identity in 1154 was unlike anything before. A stone city, rising from a kingdom once built of wood. A trade city, humming with movement, ships, and silver. A legal city, holding courts, scribes, and royal administration. A cultural city, absorbing influences from across Europe. A spiritual city filled with churches, monasteries, and the endless chanting of monks, trying not to fall asleep during midnight prayers. A political city where nobles negotiated, bishops debated, and rulers shaped the future. London had become the stage upon which England's fate was written, and everyone knew it. Merchants felt it in their profits. Sailors felt it in the crowded wharves. Priests felt it in their churches bursting with congregants. Craftsmen felt it in the steady demand for skill. Children felt it in the lively, bustling streets where danger and opportunity danced side by side. Nobles felt it during meetings in dim halls where decisions rippled outward like waves. The city was evolving, growing, preparing. The Plantagenet dawn. Henry II arrived with something England desperately needed: competence. He was intelligent, strategic, disciplined. A king shaped by hardship, exile, and political training across kingdoms. He married the formidable Eleanor of Aquitaine, uniting England with one of the richest, most cultured regions of Europe. Under Henry, England entered a new era, an era of law, reform, expansion, and change. London, thriving already, would expand even faster in the coming decades. New bridges, new palaces, new markets, new monasteries, new stone buildings, new roads, new trade networks, new responsibilities. The city that had survived Norman conquest, rebellion, and civil war was now poised to rise to heights no medieval citizen could yet imagine. A city of stone and ambition. By the time Henry II set foot in London, the city glimmered with potential. You could stand on London Bridge, the old wooden one, not the later stone masterpiece, and watch ships glide past like restless spirits. You could hear the chorus of languages in the markets. You could see the tower looming above like a guardian of destiny. You could feel the hum of commerce vibrating beneath your feet. You could sense that the city was leaning forward as though preparing to leap into centuries of greatness. London was no longer just a city. It was an idea, a promise, a force gathering strength. And Henry II, brilliant and driven, was the king who would help unlock that potential. The threshold of greatness. London had survived the Norman conquest, political restructuring, rapid growth, the fiery energy of William II, the reforms of Henry I, the tragedy of the White Ship, the chaos of the Anarchy, and it stood stronger than ever. A city reforged by fire, a city sharpened by conflict, a city steadied by trade, a city anchored by stone. It was ready, truly ready, for everything the Plantagenet age would bring. Architectural revolutions, legal transformations, royal dramas, rebellions, foreign influence, artistic blossoming, and a role on the world stage that would expand far beyond the Thames. London was stepping into the light, not shyly, not cautiously, but with the quiet confidence of a city that knew, even then, that it was destined for greatness. A city with a future so vast, it could swallow centuries and still hunger for more. And that is where episode 1 ends. Because the next chapter, the rise of the Plantagenets, the golden age of medieval London, the birth of Parliament, the construction of Gothic wonders, the drama of kings, belongs to episode 2. Sleep now, and when you wake, London will still be there, its story waiting, its centuries glowing quietly beneath the fog. Rest now, traveler. You have walked through nearly a century with me tonight, through the fog of conquest, through the rising stones of Norman fortresses, through markets that buzzed with eels and arguments through the echo of hooves on muddy roads, and the murmur of monks bent over their manuscripts. You have stood beside kings who shaped kingdoms, queens who waited in the shadows, merchants shouting prices into the morning air, and craftsmen carving tomorrow out of wood and stone. You have seen London before it became London, before the domes, before the palaces, before the carriages and chimneys and clock towers. You have watched it grow, inch by inch, stone by stone, like a great creature stretching itself awake. So now, let the images settle. Let the stone walls fade into the quiet dark. Let the memory of gray skies soften into a gentle haze. Let the river mist drift away like a drifting thought. Let the sound of hooves on wet streets slow until it becomes the steady rhythm of your own breathing. Let the great white tower, pale and patient beside the Thames, dissolve into stillness. You are no longer standing on medieval streets. You are here in the calm of your room, with the quiet hum of your own world surrounding you. Feel the weight of the blankets settle over your legs. Feel your chest rise and fall. Slowly, naturally, like the tide washing against a quiet shore. London's story is paused for the night. Yours too can rest. Close your eyes when you're ready. Let your thoughts drift like a small boat on the Thames, carried gently by the current. Let the centuries you've traveled tonight become soft shadows behind you. Let your mind loosen its grip on the timelines, the kings, the battles, the laughter in markets, the chants in monasteries, the clatter of carts rolling through narrow streets. All of it can wait. All of it will be there when the sun returns. Sleep softly now, friend. You have traveled far tonight. You have earned a quiet rest, the kind that settles deep into the bones, the kind that feels like sinking into warm earth, the kind that smooths the edges of your thoughts until they are no more than whispers. London will still be here when you wake. Its towers, its bridges, its alleys of centuries past, all of them waiting patiently like pages in a book left open on a bedside table. And its next chapter, stretching into ages of kings and rebels, cathedrals and plagues, parliaments and poets, will be here too, waiting for another night, waiting for you. Rest now.